Welcome to Disturbing the Peace. I'm your host, John Amanchukwu, coming to you live from Y-Refi Studios. What happens when a culture rejects God's design for the family, and even the church begins to echo the culture instead of Scripture? Today, Delano Squires joins me to unpack the most talked about chapters of his new book, The Vanishing Black Family. We'll examine the lasting impact of feminism on marriage and family, the rise of what he calls Afostocracy, and why some of the nation's most influential Black pastors and leaders have, in his view, traded biblical truth for political acceptance. This is a conversation about family, faith, and the future of the Black church. All here today on Disturbing the Peace.
From heaven, there's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you, let's disturb the peace. With John Amanchukwu, disturb the peace.
And now on Disturbing the Peace, I have been waiting for this moment. I'm going to bring on my good friend, Delano Squires, director of the DeVos Center for Human Flourishing at the Heritage Foundation and author of the new book, The Vanishing Black Family. Delano, welcome back to Disturbing the Peace.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you here. Listen, I told you that I was going to purchase a case of books. I told you this the first day you told me about your new book, and that will take place today. When you send me the link, I'm purchasing a case. So I'm saying to everyone out there as well, if you want this information about the Vanishing Black Family, you should purchase a case of books. Why just buy one when you can help a community? So get a case. Don't buy it by the single book. Buy it by the case. And if you don't do it, I'm going to find you. I'm going to pick you up and walk 10 steps and body slam you. We need to support this man of God. He jumped into the hot end, not the deep end, but the hot end of the frying pan and or the swimming pool to address these issues and problems. And I know he's getting some pushback. I know that he may be, but yet and still he's working to save a generation. Delano,
yes,
I want to start here. Chapter 3 of your book talks about deceiving women with feminism. You argue that second wave feminism deceived women by promising liberation through rejecting marriage and family, not by expanding basic rights like voting or property ownership, but through a specific ideology, he says, sows discord between men and women. I want to read this also. The traditional family is obsolete, and an economically independent Black woman doesn't need a husband to have a baby. You said that on page 44. So you open this chapter with a successful, accomplished woman publicly choosing motherhood without a husband. Why did you start there? And what does her story actually represent?
Yeah, so I started chapter 3 by talking about Ebony K. Williams, who many people may know. Is a media personality. She was on Real Housewives in New York. She wasn't married at the time. But I started with her story because I think it's emblematic of sort of the fruit of the bitter root of second wave feminism. And what I mean is that when I talk about second wave feminism deceiving women, it deceived women into believing that femininity is weak, masculinity is toxic in men, but empowering in women, that marriage is oppressive, the home is a prison, and children are a burden. And I started with Ebony K. Williams because this is someone who on paper has it all. She's successful, a lawyer, has been in the media for well over a decade. But when she talked about desiring to have a child and become a single mother by choice, what she was doing was reflecting the notion that women who desire children don't actually need husbands in order to form a family. And what I continue to say in that chapter is I talked about when she was on the griot and it was a news correspondent, and she did a 3-minute monologue,
right,
where she counseled Black women, again, to look outside of these unfulfilling relationships. And if you want to have children, go ahead and have a child by a sperm donor. And in the course of a 3-minute video, she used the term Black sperm 6 times because to her, it wasn't about, right? It wasn't about starting a family. It wasn't about marriage. It wasn't about Black love or Black man or Black family. It was about Black sperm. So she reduced men down to their bare sort of reproductive capacity. And what I argue is that this is a direct result. I could draw a direct line from the second wave feminism of the 1960s through the 1970s up until today and say, this is what happened when you sow discord to the point that you made in the quote that you read. When you sow discord between men and women, when you teach women that patriarchy is something that's oppressive, that men and masculinity are oppressive, when you tell them that marriage is really a tool of oppression used by patriarchy to hold women down, then eventually what you do is you create an environment where a successful woman will say yes to the baby, but maybe to the marriage.
I want to show this video clip now of you talking about this exact matter. Take a look at this.
The one that's most controversial is chapter 3. That's the chapter on second wave feminism. Because most people, men and women, including a good number of professing Christians, see the word feminism, and they automatically jump to the right to vote, the right to own property, the ability to work and go to school, and so on and so forth. But that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm critiquing. And I'm very specific with my critique. I'm surgical when I say no. When I say second wave feminism, this is what I mean. This is the ideology that I'm criticizing. These are the words of the people promoting it. And I show how their ideology, by definition, cannot lead to stronger families because it sows seeds of discord between men and women.
Yes, so piggybacking off of that, sowing seeds of discord, that's strong language. Do you believe that it's intentional or it's happening in a manner where they don't even understand why it's taking place?
I believe in the 1960s and 70s, it definitely was intentional.
Okay.
These weren't women just sort of backing into this ideology. And I open chapter 3 by talking about Betty Friedan and her book, The Feminine Mystique, which sort of marks the unofficial beginning of the second wave feminist movement. I talk about, and in that book, she makes the argument that suburban women, she was talking about white women mainly, were unhappy playing the roles of homemaker and housewife. And she actually talked about the home as a concentration camp. She used that type of language.
Wow.
I move on to Gloria Steinem and some of her writing about what it would look like if women win. And she, again, diminished the role of homemaker by comparing housewives to hostesses and so on, right? So she was intentional in elevating a career and a certain educational attainment and diminishing the role that women have traditionally played in terms of keepers of the home, even if they worked outside the home. And you and I know Black women have almost always worked outside the home, especially in this country. But Gloria Steinem was diminishing the role of wife and mother. And then I talk about the evolution of Black feminism as a distinct political ideology and philosophy. And some of the names that I mentioned there, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Angela Davis, Alice Walker. These were women, who were intentional in terms of saying Black women are under the thumb of, a racist capitalist system, right? Under capitalism, racism, and then they added in sexism and patriarchy. So by definition, that type of ideology cannot lead to stronger families. Because they are at war, 1, with God, 2, with nature, and 3, at war with men. And this is why you see early on in their writing, again, they diminish the importance of marriage. One woman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who has represented DC as an unelected member of Congress for over 30 years, wrote in the Black Women's Manifesto that, Black women who are sitting at home reading bedtime stories to their kids are not going to make it in the revolution, right? She said they need to be out doing something with their talents, but outside the home. So it was about separating women from the home. And by the time I get to quoting Rebecca Walker, who's the daughter of Alice Walker, right? Again, noted feminist icon, author of The Color Purple. She said that her mom, and I'm paraphrasing, her mom raised her to believe that having a family was a form of slavery, and traveling the world, having your own money, getting being independent was what really mattered. So if you're a woman who's been nursing on this type of political ideology from your mother and your intellectual, from your actual mother, even if she didn't use the words, even if she didn't take the classes, and your intellectual foremothers, it's not a surprise that you turn around and you have, you hear the types of things that you hear today from women who basically say, I don't need a man. And we've been dealing with that, I'd say, for at least 2 generations.
We're talking to Delano Squires on his recent book, The Vanishing Black Family. We'll pick it up after this break. Private student loan debt in the U.S. totals about $300 billion. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed, while Refi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. Why Refi is not a debt settlement company, and they work with each borrower individually, tailoring each loan to each borrower's specific situation. You will not be calling a faceless call center. Why Refi can reduce your monthly payment and guarantees interest rates under 6%, ensuring affordability and financial relief. Why Refi does not care what your credit score is. When the payment on your distressed or defaulted private student loan is so big that you can't ever get ahead in your finances, Why Refi is surely your best option. You can finally take control of your student loan situation with a plan that works for your monthly budget. Just call 888-YREFI-85 or log on to YREFI.com. That's YREFY.com. So Delano, you quote Proverbs 14 verse 1 in this chapter. The wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands, the foolish one tears hers down. How does that verse frame everything else you're arguing here?
Yeah, so to me, any woman who says that she is pro-Black, right? She says she supports the Black family. She wants Black liberation, but is arguing against the institution of marriage and arguing for more abortion, which is, again, another part of sort of the feminist mandate, right? They see abortion as a way to liberate women. To me, is a foolish woman. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. So these are the types of women who, if they see an all-male space, whether it's a bowling league or a particular sector of the economy, they said, this is something that we have to be involved. We have to diversify all male spaces. But the one thing in human nature that only women can do, they see that as a sign of oppression. And they want to be able to think like men, speak like men, dress like men, but also have sexual relations like men, meaning they want, quote unquote, consequence-free sex. And this is where the push for abortion comes in. So yes, I would say that this is a foolish ideology because it doesn't lead to the types of outcomes that they talk about. And I go even further in the chapter because I quote Elaine Brown, who was the first chairman or chairwoman, if you would, of the Black Panther Party. Now, a lot of Black folk look at the Black Panthers and they like the Black uniforms and the berets and the arms and the militant poses. But the truth is, the Black Panthers couldn't deliver liberation either. Because if you adhere to a Marxist-Leninist ideology, where again, man and woman are at war. Woman and child are at war. You cannot produce the type of community and environment that can be at war with anybody else.
That's right.
Because you're constantly at war within your own home. And when I believe in before Roe versus Wade was passed, became law, the Black Panthers talked about abortion as a form of genocide in the Black community. But when they got their first chairwoman, she saw abortion as necessary for the liberation of Black women. So again, you have subsequent generations of Black women, particularly educated Black women, who are arguing against the family. And I'll add this last piece. I didn't just critique second wave feminism in the book. I actually point to Anna Julia Cooper, who is known as the mother of Black feminism. Now, she came way earlier than the 1960s. She was an educator. She was an author. And I quote her from a book she wrote about Black women in the South post-slavery. And I'm paraphrasing, but she said something to the effect of, the dedicated Christian wife and mother is more needed in Black homes today at that time than any missionary. And she was saying, like, this is part of what we need to do as educated Christian Black women. And by the time, again, you get to the 1960s, 1970s, her intellectual descendants, if you would, were saying something completely different. So that's why I make the argument that the Black second wave feminists basically betrayed their Black intellectual foremother in order to work on behalf of their white masters.
Strong language, but I agree with you 100%. You go back to the very beginning of the movement in this chapter, to Betty Friedan's 1963 book, The Feminine Mystique, which is widely credited with sparking second wave feminism. Here's how you describe what she actually said about family life. And I quote, Friedan believed that the suburban housewife, largely focused on her family and domestic life, was trapped in a comfortable concentration camp. You referenced that earlier, where she was destined to a slow death of mind and spirit. This is from page 46. Calling a family home a concentration camp, I actually think that's condescending to people who actually went through real concentration camps.
Yeah.
Where they were unalived and eliminated. It's way off of the reservation to use such sharp language to call it a concentration camp. But calling a home a concentration camp is an extraordinarily loaded comparison. What did that framing actually accomplish for the movement? And what did it cost women who genuinely found meaning in that life?
I think what we see is what it cost them is their family, right? We've seen subsequent generations of women who have gotten all the things that their, women like Betty Friedan, who was Jewish, by the way. So she was making such a loaded statement as a Jewish woman in terms of comparing the home to the concentration camp. But you see subsequent generations of young women who have the education, who have the income, who own homes. In America, single women own about 3 million more homes than single men. And yet,
say that one more time. Say that again.
In America, single women own about 3 million more homes than single men.
Wow.
So they've accomplished all the things that these women desired. From 1950, if you were looking at college campuses and the gender balance in 1950 or 1960, colleges were mainly men. Now that's flipped, and most college campuses are primarily women, and particularly at HBCUs. At Howard University, the New York Times did a story last year, only 19% of students at Howard University are Black men. I believe that's undergrad students, are Black men. So the feminists won, basically, mission accomplished. So they got the women everything that they desired in terms of material resources. But now you see more and more, women saying, well, I don't have anybody to date. I want to have kids. I haven't found anybody, right? So there's a trade-off. And women in previous generations emphasize marriage and family. If you were a woman, black or white, growing up, let's say in the 1960s, and you were 25 years old and unmarried, people will start to whisper and say, you're a spinster, you're an old maid, right? They actually had terms for women who were not married by a particular time, because 70+% of American adults were married at that time in history. But today, the age of first marriage has gone from 24 and 22 for men and women respectively to about 31 and 29.
Wow.
And with no signs of slowing down. So yeah, they really made a devil's bargain. And now you see, again, this generation of women asking themselves, well, where are all the good men?
You mentioned Gloria Steinem earlier. I want to give a direct quote about her from the book, from page 47. You say that Gloria Steinem explicitly stated, women's lib is not trying to destroy the American family. Whether the overt goal was to upend the family or merely provide women more economic opportunity, mainstream liberal feminists of the 1960s all challenged the social norms and gender dynamics that kept women at home. Steinem said outright, the goal wasn't to destroy the family. Why do you think the actual outcome tells a different story than her stated intention?
Because I think at its roots, feminism is a political ideology, as I said earlier, that is at war with God, and how God created men and women to interact with one another. All right. So what I say in the book is that men and women are equal in dignity and worth, but different in form and function. Right. We play different roles. We have different bodies. We have different reproductive capacities and so on and so forth. But we fit together like hand in glove because that's how God designed us. When you come in with people who say, well, actually, no, men and women are exactly the same. And I call this androgynous egalitarianism. So there's the idea that there's really no differences between the sex and no differences in terms of the roles and responsibilities between the two sexes. Then you have an ideology where you say, well, we want to be treated, just like men. And that's not the way the world works. Women are different. And just societies harness the strength of men in service of protecting women and children. The feminists say, well, we don't want that, right? We want to be the new men. And that's why I say it teaches that masculinity is toxic in men, but empowering in women. Because now you have women declaring that they are alpha women. And they talk in a masculine fashion when they're communicating with men. Some of them have high power jobs, so they feel like they have to present a certain way. And this is why you have a generation of women, like if you watch dating shows, and I watch a fair number just for field research purposes, but you have the phenomenon of women saying, well, I'm in my masculine era, or I'm in my masculine presence, but I just need to meet the right man who will put me back in my feminine space.
What is that?
Something that's completely right. So
what is that? So I am now taking on a persona that's not God-given. I strongly believe that femininity controls a man. Masculinity can enrage a man because if a woman is in her masculine era and she's married to a man, dating a man, that man is coming home looking for a woman. But he's met with a masculine woman, i.e. another man. But he's not coming home after a long, hard day of work, chasing the gazelle, contending with the pressure, being the protector, the provider, the priest of the home, organizing the family to the point where we know that the kids have to go off to college. We know that things are coming down the pike. I've got to find additional resources to take care of this. I've got to purchase a vehicle one day for the kids. Got to take care of that. I have to make sure that I'm stewarding the family in the manner where we can have legacy and be intentional. We got to find retirement. All of these things are on a man. And then when he gets home, he's met with someone who's listened to the Desperate Housewives or the latest rump shaking, booty shaking artist or vixen who's convinced that lady that no, you don't need to focus on scrambling eggs and cooking for that man and cooking 2 or 3 times a day. No, you need to be a boss chick. You need to tap into your alpha masculine era dominance junk. It's just foolishness. And so I want to show you this video clip of a lady describing, the masculine hood energy, which does destroy homes. Take a look at this.
Bro, come eat. Hey, babe, dinner's ready. What you want? Word 2, make it quick. I'm trying to eat too. Hey, babe, do you want me to make your plate for you? About time. Where you been? Hey, babe, how was your day? Nah, I don't want to talk. I'm straight. Hey, babe, can we talk for a minute? No, I kid you not. I grew up with straight masculine energy. But when you become a wife, even before you become a wife, you got to learn how to get rid of that, okay? Say bye to Miss Masculina and learn how to speak more feminine, okay?
And you see in that video clip there that even when she started talking about, I grew up with masculine, feminine energy, her face, her eyes, her cadence, her communication style, aggressive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Masculine. Yeah. You expect a man to be aggressive. You expect a man to be masculine. And men don't need to apologize for their masculinity. They don't need to. Right? People want to call it toxic and whatever it is. I just watched a viral video clip of a 16-year-old young man rescuing someone from the water who was drowning. And there were several women on the beach while this was going on. But it was the masculine 16-year-old who jumped into the raging ocean to try to save the young man that was drowning, and other men came alongside him to help and to support as well. When masculinity is diminished, the protector role becomes insignificant. Delano, talk to me more about this masculine energy dominance ideology that has become the proliferation of the home and how it has so destroyed it in many ways.
Yeah. Now, long before I wrote this book and was sort of in the social sciences, I saw this, growing up in New York, and not to pick on any one of the boroughs, but the girls from Brooklyn always had a little harder edge than the girls from Queens, where I grew up. So I saw this, right? These were the girls who would fight at the drop of a dime, right? They talked in a particular way. They curse, and particularly nowadays, what you see across different school districts is oftentimes the girls are the ones fighting more than the boys.
Yes, that is true.
The girls, right? The girls are the ones cursing. Even things that we used to associate with a subset of men, right? Like being heavily tattooed, that you would associate with guys either in the military or in jail.
That's right.
Have now become commonplace among women. And I think part of this even goes back to what we were talking about in terms of feminism. Feminism subtly taught women that the height of femininity was thinking, acting, and speaking like a man, which is why whenever feminists are pushing women to do something, it's to behave more like men. It's to wear the suit and adopt the power pose. It's to man spread, right? It's to talk in a particular way, to lower your voice and to take up more space.
Yes.
Right. It's all about mimicking behaviors that you see in men. At the same time, the same women have been telling men that to become a truly refined and sophisticated man and a progressive man, you have to think, act, and speak more like a woman. So you have, right? You have the social experiment where you teach young women to behave more like men.
Yes.
And you teach young men to behave more like women. And then we wonder why we have problems in the family. Now, this is exacerbated in our community where you have 70% of Black children going back to the mid-90s born to unmarried parents and about half raised by a single mom. So you're missing an element who will provide a sense of balance to the household. And there's that old adage that moms love their sons and raise their daughters.
Wow.
And the way that's sort of carried out, again, in the Black community is, and I've heard this from countless women, where their mothers and aunts and grandmothers would push them in school and say, you got to do this, you got to get your money, you got to be independent. And then they would baby and coddle the young men. Now, again, you have two parents in the home. This is where dad comes in and it says, boy, you better get up. Look, if I'm going to work, you have to get up out of this bed and go do something with yourself. Either go to school, get a job, go to the military, do something. I'm not raising ain't no good man in this home. But if the mom's initial instinct, particularly for her son, is protection, is to come, and sometimes you even have this in a married household where dad is disciplining and discipling and laying down structure and order, particularly for his sons, and mom is itching to get in and say, well, you don't have to be, you don't talk to them like that. And so there's this dynamic, but when the dad is not there, there's no one to provide that hedge of protection in the household in terms of how to appropriately interact with both boys and girls. And one of the things you talked about, roles, feminists hate the idea of gender roles. Or so they say. Nobody really hates gender roles because even the type of woman who writes at the Atlantic or teaches at some liberal arts college, if she and her husband are laying in the bed at 2 in the morning and something goes bump in the night, he's not going to turn to her and say, well, you know what? As a good feminist ally, I got it last time and I believe in equality, so you get it this time. No. 100% of the time, he has to go and handle that job. So she believes in gender roles. But one of the things that's obvious to me is that if you and I are speaking in public and we say that we are training our sons to be future husbands and fathers, we will get applause. Oh, yes, we need more good men in this world.
Yes.
Say we're training our daughters to be future wives and mothers, people are going to say, well, what does that mean? Well, what does that kind of look like? What does that entail? And I think a part of it is because the roles for men in society, and particularly in the family, have been unchanged since the beginning of time. The minimum is that he has to provide and he has to protect. In Genesis, God gave Adam a job before he gave him a wife.
That's right.
So that's been unchanged.
That's right.
The roles for women, however, are not only have changed, but nobody even wants to say what they are.
Right.
Because as soon as you when you talk about roles in women, those feel like boundaries. And to people with this particular mindset, boundaries feel like oppression. So functionally, the role for a woman in the household is just to do whatever she wants to do to make her happy, right? Whereas I would say, no, biblically speaking, those minimum roles are to nurture and support. Now that expresses itself in many different ways. In the same way, providing and protecting expresses itself in many different ways, but it is to nurture and support. But if we can't even get clear on what women are supposed to do in the household, then there's no way that we can train future wives and future mothers when they are at younger ages, so that every step along the way, they have this understanding, okay, my dad and my mom are preparing me for the future role that they want me to have in the household. We do that for our sons. We don't do that for our daughters.
The phrase that I despise, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
What are the implications of said phrases? Do they further the narrative of feminism?
They do, because they center the entire household around the emotions of the mom. Right. And not to feed into gender stereotypes, but if you take the typical man and typical woman, a woman's going to have more emotional fluctuations over the course of a 30-day period than a man will. And some of that's basic biology, right? When she's going through her cycle, hormone levels are going up and down, right? When our wives are pregnant, right? Different feelings at different times and different stages in the pregnancy. So to me, it is unwise to condition the happiness of a home, the peace and joy in a home, on the emotions of mom or dad, for that matter.
Yes.
It shouldn't be about one member.
Exactly.
Now I would say happy spouse, happy house, and that to me shows that the responsibility that husband and wife have for meeting each other's needs.
Yes.
And I actually think that the sort of a biblical mandate. But yes, this type of ideology continues the idea that, you know, everything around the home should revolve around women. And what I actually argue in the book particularly once you get to the second half of the book with the solutions, is that we need to reframe the conversation around family reconstruction to focus on the rights and needs of children, not the desires and feelings of adults. And what do I mean by that? It's the idea that children have a right to the affection, protection, connection, correction, and direction of the one man and one woman who created him or her, and that right is best exercised in a loving, low conflict, safe and secure household with a married mom and dad. So this, again, reframes the issue away from what the adults want, right? So no more gender wars, no more the men blaming the women because they're too masculine and the women blaming the men because they're too unfaithful. It's both parties saying, you know what, the only innocent person in this household is these children. So we need to do whatever we need to do to get ourselves together to provide a better home and life for our kids.
You end this chapter with a section you call Love Triangle. I like that. About how the government itself stepped into the role of a husband in the first place, or the role that the husband used to fill. I want to quote you here from page 53 through 54. The expansion of the welfare state placed elected officials and unelected bureaucrats in the role of husband and father for millions of single mothers and their children. In this arrangement, Black men play a role in procreation, but not in household leadership. For Black feminists, this is the perfect relationship. Uncle Sam provides food and shelter for poor single mothers and supports the career aspirations of educated and upwardly mobile Black women. You're describing the government literally replacing the role of husband and father in millions of homes. What does it actually look like in practice when a check replaces a man?
Yeah, so I want readers to know chapter 3 obviously comes on the heels of chapter 2. In chapter 2, I talk about how the expansion of the welfare state displaced men from their rightful role as providers. So again, in mid-1960s, you have Lyndon Johnson, Great Society, War on Poverty, welfare exploding from a relatively small sort of social safety net type program to a massive, set of government spending that allowed multiple generations of low-income families, typically headed by unmarried mothers, to stay on the government dole supported by Uncle Sam. And when I talk about that love triangle, that triangle has 3 elements. It's low-income single moms who are looking for, financial resources and support. You have elected officials who are looking for votes and job security. And then you have unelected bureaucrats who also get job security by managing the poverty economy. These are the caseworkers, social workers, statisticians, policy advisors. These are all of the nonprofit executives and administrators. These are all of the people who work, even to this day, in inner city, America, whether you're talking about inner city Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, New Orleans, Atlanta, St. Louis, Memphis, whose jobs entirely consist of dealing with the fallout of family breakdown. All right. So this is something that we've seen. And if you ask me what that looks like, I'll take D.C. because I know D.C. well. In D.C., 77% of Black children are born to unmarried parents. 77%. Now, just for the sake of comparison, because everybody likes to talk about racial equity, 93% of white children are born to married parents. So that is a 70 percentage point gap in terms of non-marital birth rate in the nation's capital, in Chocolate City. So that means when you go to certain neighborhoods, you would struggle to find a single child being raised by their married biological parents, by a married mom and dad. And because of that, you have government officials saying, well, we need more programs, whether that's after school programs on the weekend. We need programs to prevent teens from engaging in teen takeovers where they meet up in public and they get into fights and so on and so forth. So all of that spending is to mitigate the fallout from family breakdown. And I put that in there because In the 1960s, this was a conversation mainly about low-income women, low-income Black women in this case, and supporting them. It was more paternalistic. What I say today, particularly if you look at Democrats and progressives, that sense of connectedness also includes, as you read, educated and upwardly mobile Black women. So when Democrats show up in the Black community, they will say that Black women are the backbone of the party, that Black women save democracy, Black women save the world. They will say that everyone wins when Black women lead. And when they make promises to Black women, they say, vote for us and we'll make you a Supreme Court justice, a federal judge, we'll patronize your media company, we'll patronize your DEI consultancy. When they speak to Black men, they typically talk in a scolding tone and ask them why they're not doing their part and why they're not following Black women. And when they make the pitch, they say, vote for us and we'll keep you from being George Floyd or Jacob Blake. We will protect you. Right? We will protect you.
Wow.
So notice the dynamic. When they speak to the women, they say, we will empower you.
Right.
When they speak to the men, they will say, we will protect you. So Black men end up becoming damsels in distress in their own community.
Oh, stop it. Stop it, Delano. Stop it, man. The Black man becomes a damsel in distress.
Yes.
Oh man, keep going. This is good. This is good. I need to pay for security for you as well. We need to get you. We need to get 24/7 security for you because you're saying things that might get you clawed. Keep going.
But that's his dynamic. And in the book, and I say this, and this probably I probably need an extra security guard when I say this. In the book, I say that the most consequential interracial union in America's history is not the one that is adjudicated in the Loving versus Virginia Supreme Court decision. It is the marriage between Black feminists and white liberals that has powered the Democratic Party for the last 60 years. And that's why when I talk about the Iron Triangle, Black men are on the outside. And this is not just elected officials. If you look in the media landscape, when somebody like Roland Martin puts on a shirt that says vote like a Black woman.
Yes.
And right, this is the dynamic that I'm talking about.
Right.
Because you and I know none of his female peers, none of the Black women in media will wear a shirt that says lead like a Black man.
No.
Trust Black men. So it is a completely one-sided relationship where these guys understand that if they want to stay in the good graces of the progressive left, that they have to use their masculinity on behalf of more marginalized groups. That's the way that the left works. The left demonizes masculinity until it's time for Black men to play the role of mule for some other marginalized group. And we saw this recently with the Supreme Court decision that dealt with the Voting Rights Act. And here comes the NAACP, who almost never talks to Black men, right? It's all about Black women lead. And now all of a sudden, all the civil rights leaders are saying, young Black athletes got to step up and stop going to colleges in the Deep South because they're trying to erase Black voting power. And this is like, no, the Voting Rights Act, adjustment to the Voting Rights Act may decrease Democratic representation.
Right.
But that's a blue issue. That's not a Black issue. So yes, this Iron Triangle has been set in place for a long time. And this is why the movement that I'm calling for in this book, in terms of family revival, has to be led by Christian married Black men. And I say that because this is the demographic group, first and foremost, who knows the architect of marriage and has respect and trust in his blueprint. And these are also the men who have shown in their personal life that they can embody the values that are being promoted in the book. That doesn't mean that Black women can't be a part of it. They certainly can.
Right.
But some of them are going to feel a sense of resistance because when somebody like me starts talking about the importance of marriage, they're going to be a subset of Black women, including some Black Christian women, who feel like he's trying to take power away from me, right? and what I'm saying is, no, we have to get this thing in order. We have to right the relationship between men, women, and the God who created marriage. And we're talking about reversing 60 years of both bad policy and bad cultural norms.
Delano, man, I join you in this effort, to properly align the family, in particular the Black family. It has to be done. It needs to be done. 77% of kids in DC raised by a single parent, in particular a mother, that's a travesty. A matriarchal community cannot compete with the patriarchal community. They just can't. And you can become emboldened in your Black girl magic, whatever that is. You can put on your chucks and your pearls to mimic Kamala Harris. You can continue to support the very political party that ultimately has sought to eviscerate Black people. You can do all of that stuff all you want to. But at the end of the day, you're going to be nothing more than a woman who's angry, who walks in masculine energy, but you're leaving no legacy. You rob yourself of legacy when you buy into the big lie. Now, we do know that there's a curse baked in the cake, right? There's a curse in all of this from the fall, okay? That the desire of the woman would be for her husband, but he will rule over thee. In other words, her desire would be to usurp authority over the man, but not speaking of weak men or spineless men, but a strong man is not going to allow her to do so. And if they have to argue it out, contend it out, fight it out, whatever it is, you know what I mean? They're going to do it, to bring proper order and balance back to the family. Speaking of who I call, you just called him Roland Martin. I call him the sassy Sasquatch bottom. That's what I call him. The sassy Sasquatch bottom. And I call him that because, Roland Martin was on his show one time, the Black Network, whatever he calls it. And someone from his control room showed his computer screen, and it was an image of a person who was disrobed, and their buttocks was showing. And from the imagery that I gathered with 4 eyes, two, all right? What I saw was a buttocks. It wasn't as black as us. It looked like a white bottom, okay? And so as much as Roland has to say about white people, you can't be talking bad about white folk and the white man, but looking at white booty cheeks on your on your screen. That's a hypocrisy. That's hypocrisy. But anyway, to this image right here, I want to show you of what you were just talking about. This is the sassy Sasquatch bottom, okay? Vote like a Black woman. Delano, you couldn't pay me to wear that.
Yeah.
All right. You couldn't put it back up there. The world, don't take away the sassy Sasquatch bottom. And he's got that, and the still shot is apropos. Look at him. I mean, Roland, no man who's decent, who even understands the plight of the Black family and what's going on, nowhere in this world, you couldn't find a white European. You couldn't find a white man from the Caucasus Mountains who's ever gonna put on a shirt like that and say, vote like a Black woman. Why does there have to be a sex, not gender? We have 72 different genders and counting, but you have 2 sexes. Why does voting have to be like a sex? And why is that even factored factored in the first place. It should go deeper than whether or not you have a penis or a vagina. I mean, come on here. But this guy, he puts that on his network. Why? Because he's pandering towards a voting bloc who, by and large, has sold their soul, their allegiance, their pride, and their honor towards a political party that has sought to bring about the ultimate demise of the Black community. We saw this in the past election. Nearly 92 to 93% of Black women voted like Black women, which means they voted for the Democrat Party. Now, we saw nearly 2.2 million Black men say, I don't care what these women say. I don't care about the masculine energy, the Black girl magic. Keep that to yourself. We are going to go support President Donald J. Trump. Now, whether you agree with President Donald J. Trump on everything that he has done, everything that he says, the banter, the communication, the times where he's typing, tweeting, and texting when he probably should be sleeping, resting, or praying, right? You know, I love him. However, when you look at his policies, apart from personality at times, the policies are beneficial for these Black women that Roland is being a simp for. The policies are good for us. They're better for us than any of the policies that we've seen heretofore. But it's people like Roland Martin that we have to call out. He knows that Sister Girl and those who are part of the Divine Nine, these are the fraternities and the sororities, these individuals are going to support him hand over fist. They're going to support him. They're going to buy into it. He's a part of the Boule. He's a part of a fraternity. I believe he's an alpha. You know, the alphas believe that Jesus is the light of the world, but also alpha is the light of the world. They have a theology that is messed up. And this leads me, Delano, towards chapter 4 of your book. You coin a phrase, the Afostocracy. I mean, man, you boy, I tell you what, the Holy Ghost was moving while you were writing this book, man. The man came up with Afostocracy. Unpack that for us and explain that for the audience.
Yeah, so just to be fair, the first time I ever saw the term Afostocracy used, I actually saw it in a book. This was probably 2005 from Michael Eric Dyson. I don't know if you remember. He wrote a book about Bill Cosby after Bill Cosby, had his infamous pound cake speech where he was, taking Black America to task and saying we need to do better with raising our kids and so on and so forth. And Dyson wrote a book, called Is Bill Cosby Right or Has the Black Middle Class Lost Its Mind? And he used the term Afostocracy to describe sort of Black elites. And he put Cosby in that class, and then he contrasted that with the ghettoocracy and low income working class folks, incarcerated people, whatever. I use the term Afostocracy, and I actually include Dyson in my term to describe the progressive Black politicians, pundits, preachers, professors, and performers. Right? It's a stand-in for the term Black leadership class. Now, I use that term because I go back to W.E.B. Du Bois and his writings on the Talented Tenth and him talking about how the Black community is going to be led basically by Black educated people. And I know some conservatives don't like Du Bois because he ended up being a socialist and so on and so forth. But one of the things that Du Bois understood is that the point of leaders is to drive the community forward and upward. Right. So this is why he advocated for certain types of education. Du Bois would never be counseling young people to be wearing bonnets to class, in the 1900s, right? That wasn't what he was doing. So he wanted educated Blacks to lead the race forward. My beef with the Afostocracy and the Black leadership class since sort of the post-civil rights generation of Black leaders is that they end up leading the race backward and downward because it's the educated elite who run cover for every form of degeneracy, for every form of self-destruction. I could look to the 1990s. Whenever somebody raised a critique about hip hop, here comes some academic telling you why, no, well, actually, this is street journalism and you don't understand. This is revolt against the oppressive nature of capitalism. You know, every time somebody says, you know what? No, we actually believe that there are only two sexes and switching is not allowed, right? A Christian minister yourself says that. Here comes some academic saying, no, there's 72 genders and transphobia is related to racism. It's another form of oppression. And until Black, queer, and trans people are free, then nobody is free. So what we have in our community is a set of leaders whose ideas always end up defending or promoting self-destruction. So for instance, I quote Dr. Greg Carr. He's a professor of Afro-American history at Howard University. A few years ago, after Texas passed a heartbeat bill to ban abortion after 6 weeks, he went on Roland Martin's show and he compared women seeking abortions in Texas and particularly in the Deep South to slavery. He talked about women leaving Texas to go to quote unquote civilized states. He compared that to Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman basically stealing themselves, fleeing slavery and oppression. Mm-hmm. And this is a professor of Afro-American history, right? So I go through and show how Black leaders of old believed in the value of public morality and private virtue, right? They preached, their operating system ran on a biblical foundation. So they preached industriousness, modesty, self-control, temperance, cleanliness. These are all things that help a people rise, particularly after they've been held down for so long. And this was the builder generation. These were the people who built institutions, who built media companies. John H. Johnson built Ebony and Jet in the 1940s that's still alive today.
Right.
What you've had, the 1970s is a steady increase in the number of, Black intellectuals, politicians, pundits who are part of the destroyer generation. Mm-hmm. You can hear in the language that they use. It's always deconstruct, decolonize, destroy, dismantle.
Yep.
They don't build anything.
No.
So this is why they will use the institutions that previous generations built to argue for values that end up destroying these institutions from the inside out. So how that relates to family is that these are the people who, if you and I are on a tour and we're talking about the importance of marriage and family, they'll say, well, actually, marriage and family are not that important. We just need to spend more money on resources. Or they will say, why are we focusing on the Black family? What about all the problems with the white family? The only time that they bring up white people being in distress is when they want to take attention away from the things that are going on in our community. So I say that these people should function as cultural physicians. And a good cultural physician notices a symptom, makes a diagnosis, recommends a cure, and then gives a prognosis for the future. What these people do is they function as spin doctors. Because what a spin doctor's only role is to tell you that the things that you see with your two eyes are not as bad as you think. and that's what they end up doing in every area of society.
Delano, you say this and I quote you, the main purpose of a spin doctor, whether in a private company or the public square, is damage control and reputation management. The highest form of cultural betrayal to a spin doctor is when a Black person says something critical but true about Black people or culture. It's true, but you're not supposed to say it. It's true, but what about the white man? I talk about the Divine Nine. You know what I'm told? The white ones do the same thing. Why ain't you talking about the white ones? Talk about the PWI, fraternities and sororities. Well, sooner or later, I'm going to do one on a PWI fraternity and sorority. Then I'm going to get back to the Divine Nine because I am working to empower our people. You know, I think I should. I am a Black man. I'm married to a Black woman. My children are Black. I attend a church that's pretty much 98% Black. Why wouldn't I want to communicate to my own community and address issues? But the problem here, Delano, is when we say something critical, but true about Black people or culture. Delano, we have about 2 minutes left, and I want to be respectful of your time. How do you think things will play out for the Black community if we don't recognize that the Black community is vanishing?
If we don't address this issue of the family, we're going to look forward to the future. And in 30 years, you're going to have two very separate Black communities, separated by geography, separated by class, separated by values. You're going to have a remnant who continue to promote, you know, godly biblical values, promote the importance of marriage and family to their children. And then you're going to have a much larger group where, again, marriage and family have completely disappeared, where co-parenting is sort of the norm. Conscious co-parenting is the norm. Pickups and drop-offs are being done at the local police department. Kids have half siblings in their town who they end up dating because, you know, dad has 5x4 and mom has 4x3, and they don't even know everybody who was on their family tree. We're going to have a society where the family name is not going to have the same meaning.
Right.
The family home, the family vacation, family traditions, and even the family reunion are going to have very different connotations because the word family is going to have a very different connotation to subsequent generations. So that's why what I call for in this book is the revival era of the Black family. And what I say is, first and foremost, that has to be led by the church and Black pastors who will boldly declare that God's design for man, woman, sex, sexuality, marriage, and family is good, right? It will be led by HBCUs, right? Where still a critical mass of Black children receive their education, who should be doing more, both in the research area, in terms of researching trends and statistics around the Black family, and even something as simple as providing campus grounds for marriages and receptions for the community, and only asking for access to the video and the photographs so that that school, right, whether that's North Carolina A&T or Central or Winston-Salem State, any of the schools will say, we want to run our own marriage and family campaign on campus so that when we have kids that come in, they know I'm here to be a scholar, but while I'm here, I might find my spouse. So there are things that we can do. And the reason that I write this book about the Black family, but to Black people, is because unlike 1965 when the Moynihan Report came out, I believe that Black America has the moral, spiritual, social, cultural, political, and financial capital to address this issue. I'm not outsourcing this either to white conservatives or to white liberals. I'm saying we have to do something.
Right.
Which is why I call the NAACP, the National Urban League, and the Black leadership class, I take them to task because they've been absent from the job. They've been asleep at the wheel for the last 60 years.
Yes.
But that won't change until we change our capital allocation strategy. And right now, everything is in the politics bucket. It's boycott, protest, and vote. Those are the only things that Black leaders ask Black people to do. And what I'm saying is we can change it, but we have to do something different than what we've been doing for the last 60 years.
Delano, thank you so much for coming on Disturbing the Peace. We did a cursory review of chapter 3 and a little bit of chapter 4, and we're already at an hour. This book is chock full of information, research, studies, everything that you need to help right the ship in the Black community, you find in this book, and it's also biblically integrated. You want to get a copy of this book. Let's support Delano Squires in his work, The Vanishing Black Family. Like I told you in the beginning, I am purchasing a case. I'm going to keep some of the books here at the studio, and I'm going to give them out to Black people who I think that would benefit from said books and actually read it and do something with it. Delano, how can people follow you and support you?
Probably the easiest way is to follow me on social media at Delano Squires, DELANO SQUIRES, on X, on Instagram, on Threads. Anyone who wants to read more of my work, I'm coming out with a Substack soon, so I'll have some more information on that hopefully next time I'm back. But yeah, social media is where I post most of my stuff, and then I also obviously write, do a fair amount of writing and research at the Heritage Foundation. But yeah, so anyone can go to Amazon, and if people see the book at a local bookstore, please take a picture, tag me on social media, because I want to see how far and wide this book is going, because I really wrote this book. And if anybody reads it, you'll see that I dedicate this book, not even to my own children or my own wife. I get to them in the acknowledgments. I dedicate this book to the future generation of children who will benefit from the revival of marriage and family, because that's where my heart is. It's not about, me and my kids. My wife and I are doing our best to raise our children according to our values. We just made our 14th anniversary.
Praise God.
We're trying to do our best, thank you, in our home. But I'm thinking about the kids who live in neighborhoods where there hasn't been a marriage, there hasn't been a wedding ceremony at the local church in 3 generations. Those are the kids I'm thinking about, right? Those are the kids that I want to reach, which is why, and if we get to talk again and I come back again, we can get into chapters 5 and 6, particularly chapter 5, where I take Black pastors, liberation theologians to task for distorting the Bible in pursuit of political power, because those are the types of churches that I'm talking about, right? They want souls to the polls, but they don't do marriage rights, RITES. They only concerned with voting rights. So that's who I dedicate this book to, and this is where we'll know that we're being successful. Because if we look forward in 30 years and we see those neighborhoods again, inner city Charlotte, DC, Atlanta, New Orleans, Philly, Baltimore, and we're seeing working class Black folks, Amazon driver, the nail tech, and when they go to parent-teacher night, they're a married couple, not just co-parenting, not just cohabiting, then we'll know, okay, we got something going. And maybe we're starting to get back to God's design for the family.
Delano, let's do chapters 5 and 6. I'll coordinate with you on how to do it. There are 2 ways we can do it: virtually, or I can fly you in to the studio. I'll put you up in style, fly you in style, and bless you. We'll talk about that offline, but we need to get it done.
We'll talk about that.
All right.
Yeah.
God bless you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Take care. Hey, I have been thoroughly impacted with this conversation with Delano Squires today. He is concerned about the health of the nuclear family in America. And I appreciate that. He has put his neck on the line to address some issues that I'm sure he's going to get a lot of hate mail about because of the things that he's saying. But he's right. He's a Black man leading a family, and he's doing his best to give hope for future generations. And I think that we should do the same. So let's support him. Let's purchase his book and celebrate the work that God has called him to do. Do me a big favor, my friends. Like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Set your notifications so you know when I am going live. Go to the Apple Podcast platform, the Spotify platform, and give me a 5-star review. Let me know below, my friends, in the comment section. Am I right or am I wrong? Am I weak or am I strong? We're now signing off from YREFY Studios. That's YREFY Studios. God bless you, and God bless America. Take care.